on Network Africa. African leaders, Commonwealth paid tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. Angola's constitutional court validates general election results. And United Nations says the World Food Programme's first humanitarian shipment of grain from Ukraine has started to arrive in Ethiopia.
God save our gracious King, God save our noble King, God save the King. We love you, Charles. Thank you, Charles. We love you, King Charles.
Well, this is the moment Britons broke out into a rendition of God Save the King as the new King of Britain arrived at Buckingham Palace following the passing of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. King Charles III arrived back in London for the first time as king earlier today with his wife Camilla alongside him. He was greeted with cheers and shook hands with several well-wishers waiting outside the palace. He is expected to address the nation at 6 p.m. Charles will be officially proclaimed as king at a meeting of the Accession Council attended by his son, Prince William, on Saturday. People have been leaving flowers and tributes outside palaces and churches as the UK marks the Queen's passing. She died peacefully at Balmoral Castle on Thursday afternoon at the age of 96. Meanwhile, a minute's silence has been held in the UK's House of Commons following the Queen's death. Commons Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle and Prime Minister Liz Truss led the tributes as politicians of all stripes stood in a crowded chamber with their heads bowed. They rose to their feet, largely dressed in black, in tribute to the late monarch. Crowds have gathered, flags have been lowered to half-mast, tributes have been sent from every continent around the world. It comes as church bells rang out across the country at midday.
It is with the greatest sadness that I rise to say a few words in tribute to Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth. Almost all of us in the House have experienced no other monarch, this country's throne, but Her late Majesty. There are indeed only a score or so members in this House who have already been born, let alone who can recall a time when she wasn't the Queen. She is wedded in our minds with the crown and all it stands for. After accession in February 1952, she first came to the Palace of Westminster to open the session of Parliament in November 1952, when Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister and Speaker William Morrison was in the chair, almost 70 years ago. 57 complete sessions of Parliament have passed since then, and as she was here to open all but 3 of them, as parliamentarians, we have celebrated with her for silver, golden, diamond jubilees, and of course, marked her platinum jubilee this year. And what a service that entailed, not just as head of the nation, but head of the Commonwealth, head of the armed forces, and Supreme Governor of the Church of England. Over a reign, shall see.
Well, it's in the end of an era indeed, and the world has been reacting to the death of Queen Elizabeth II. In Africa, the impact of her reign has left an indelible mark on former colony nations. Nigeria, ruled by the British Empire from mid-19th century until 1960, has paid tribute, with President Muhammadu Buhari describing the Queen as a towering global personality and an outstanding leader. For Ghana, which the Queen Elizabeth famously visited 4 years after independence in 1961, President Nana Akufo-Addo has announced that flags would be flown at half-mast across the country for 7 days. Gabon's President Ali Bongo Ondimba referred to Queen Elizabeth as a great friend of Africa in his farewell message to the British monarch. In Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta released a statement calling the Queen a towering icon of selfless service to humanity and a key figurehead of not only the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth of Nations, where Kenya is a distinguished member, but the entire world. But while leaders from every corner of the globe have briefly united in mourning and celebrating the long life of service of Queen Elizabeth II, some reactions have been divided about the legacy of the monarch. For instance, the South African opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, broke rank with most of the world by declaring that it will not be among those mourning the British royal. The party, led by activist Julius Malema, said it will instead use her passing to highlight what it termed as a contribution to a tragic period in South Africa, a former British colony and Africa's colonial history. In the meantime, tributes continue to pour in from around the world over the UK's longest-serving monarch's death. Nigeria, ruled by the British Empire from the mid-19th century until the 1960s, is one of them. Some residents in Lagos and Abuja describe her death as tragic.
It sounds surreal to me. And I say this because the Queen has lived like she was never going to die. And for the period of her reign, generations over generations came to meet the Queen of England. It was the Queen who was here in 1960, then not as a queen, but a princess, for the independence anniversary. And she's lasted for I've known her all my life. I've never known any other ruler last that long. So for this now to have happened, well, it only means that every man has an end.
It's a great pity, and it's a strategic loss to the whole of Great Britain and entire West African proficiency, particularly Nigeria. On our platform, Nigerian got an independence that I will ever remember her for. And for a great mother, a good monarch, who has been in the throne for the period of 70 years.
Well, despite some dissenting views in South Africa, reactions are still been coming from the people of the country, where emotions are stirred, where the Queen's ties to the country began in her youth.
It's just sad. I can't really say I take it personally, but I mean, it's sad for people around the world and especially for England.
May her soul rest in peace, Shane. May her soul. London has lost, a very big person.
The whole city of Cape Town joins with the rest of the world, and in particular the Commonwealth, in mourning the loss of Queen Elizabeth II. Of course, we remember that the Queen had a special relationship with Cape Town. It was here in 1947 that she celebrated her 21st birthday and made what is probably remembered as one of her most, if not her most famous and well-remembered speeches, in which she pledged a lifetime of service, no matter how long or short she lived. In the end, she lived a very long life of dedicated service to her nation.
Let's get more on the Queen. Analyst Chidi Nwanu joins us from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
So, as a Nigerian who has lived in the UK for a long time, how are you processing the death of the Queen?
It's an interesting set of feelings that one has. So, whilst one can view it through the lens of, from a personal point of view, I consider her to have been a good head of state, to be an apolitical figurehead for this country, somebody who stayed there and kind of acted out a good grandmotherly role, for the nation. She was there, in the difficult times, with speeches out there, meeting people. So she formed, gave us that stability, that constant factor with the ever-changing prime ministers and political parties. You always knew that a constant factor in the background was the Queen was there. What it does bring us now is we have to obviously deal with maybe I would say a sense of national loss. So, I am not, a member of the royal family. She's not my grandmother or my mother. So I'm not, feeling personal pain. There is a strange feeling of emptiness. I think even people who are not traditionally favorable to the Queen, would say that, it does feel a little bit strange for her to go. Obviously, there is a mixture of feelings. There are some people who are, expressing their displeasure about the Queen or the monarchy quite vocally, and that's their right to have the freedom of expression to do that. But generally, the mood across the country is somber. She was quite well respected and in many cases well loved. And as I said, there is virtually nobody alive today for whom she wasn't the Queen. So we're entering into a period of uncertainty, which when you think about what was happening yesterday, what was meant to happen yesterday in the United Kingdom was discussions about energy prices. And that's a period of economic uncertainty that we're entering. And now we're entering, in addition to that, we're now entering into a period of what I would say is kind of social uncertainty with the change of monarch.
Right. So let me take you up on, something you just mentioned a few seconds ago about people who feel differently about the Queen and that it's their opinion, really. But does it really come as a surprise, the mixed reactions to the death of the Queen? The reaction that we're getting from some African countries, what impacts did the monarchy really have on Africa?
I don't know. It doesn't present a surprise to anyone. I mean, I'm how will I put this politely? As an Igbo man, we don't have kings where we come from, where I come from, and I'm not really a big fan of monarchs. But as I said, in the role that she was assigned by life, she played it well. She did a good job as a head of state. I served here in the military, and she was my commander in chief, and she was a good commander in chief. She's done what she was meant to do. She served her duty. She played the hand life was given her. She played it well. But for those people who don't, who aren't of the same opinion, again, I don't necessarily hold that against them. Everyone is allowed to have an opinion. As I said, I'm not a fan of monarchies in their own rights. And people who don't like the monarchies, people who dislike the Queen personally, that's their opinion. To me, I think maybe where I kind of question it is in terms of the African nations having been independent for the best part of 50, 60 years. I think it's a little bit ridiculous for people to be trying to blame, the Queen or the monarchy for, the state of Africa. African countries, as I said, we've had our own governments for a long time. And whatever situation we're in, I think we can ascribe a lot of the blame to ourselves. Within Nigeria, there's a school of thought, or there's a certain section, again, for people from my tribe who blame the Queen for the Civil War, when I think the authors or the people who started and created the Civil War, many of them are still alive and living happily in Nigeria today. So I think everyone is entitled to, ascribe whatever they wish to, to whichever world figures. And I don't have any problem with that personally. People can have an opinion. And we as human beings as well, or if we're looking at this holistically in terms of history, there will come a time where we do have to sit down and look at this period in history and assess it and see how it fits, what was good, what was bad, what was right, what was wrong. I'm looking at it from the perspective of someone who has lived through the Elizabethan era, the second Elizabethan era, for my entire life. I'm looking at it from the perspective of somebody, as I said, for whom this was my commander-in-chief and head of state. And for somebody whom personally I think, showed us a good quality of leadership that, is rare to see in the world today. And I think maybe the final point that I'll make on this is that she also, what was unique about the Queen was that she oversaw a very curious period in history. So if you imagine when she was born, Nigeria was a colony, India was a colony, Israel was a colony. Every African country today that's a member of the Commonwealth was a British colony. She was born into an empire. And during her reign, she oversaw the dismantling of that empire. And I don't think at any point during her reign we ever saw any change in her demeanor or change in how she reacted. She just took it on her chin, came over, was friendly with everyone, and there was no attempt to hold back or anything like that. And that to me is, again, nobody really knows what she felt, but it's just an interesting thing, if you know, to think of how that, what impacts that would have on a human being, to think you were born controlling, with an empire that controlled almost 25% of the world, and you ended up with an island and a few other islands scattered in the South Atlantic, and she did it with great aplomb, which, as I said, we don't know whether deep down inside it hurt her or she was really happy about it, but that's the beauty of it. We never know. She was just there. She just didn't give us any opportunity to doubt. And I think that's a great, that's to her credit.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I must thank you for that inspiring, thoughts about the Queen. And we do wish her, we wish the new king a happy reign, and we just hope that he will continue where she stopped. Thank you so much today.
God save the king.
Well, still to come on the program. Our Africa Tech segment focuses on a robotic engineer who has invented a smart bra to enable women check for lumps. Details in a moment. To other stories now, the Constitutional Court of Angola has validated the results of the general elections, thus confirming the MPLA's victory. In the ruling that responded to the appeal filed by UNITA, it said that the evidence presented is not allowed to put it in question the advantage of the popular movement for the liberation of Angola declared by the National Electoral Commission. President-elect João Lourenço will then take office on September the 15th, as announced by the presidency. Parliament in Equatorial Guinea has approved a move to bring forward the presidential election to November instead of 2023. This means political parties have less than 4 months to prepare. It follows the Congress authorization for the government to merge the presidential election with the legislative and municipal elections. The Congress said this was needed in a context of significant economic constraints. The 80-year-old president, Teodoro Batsogo, has ruled the country since 1979 and is constitutionally allowed to run for a 6th term, although he is yet to declare his candidacy. Political opposition is barely tolerated and severely hampered by the lack of a free press, as all broadcast media is either owned outright by the government or controlled by its allies. United Nations spokesperson says that the World Food Programme's first humanitarian shipment of grain from Ukraine that was delivered under the Black Sea Grain Initiative has started to arrive in Ethiopia. He adds that the grain is currently being unloaded in WFP's main warehouse in the city of Adama and will be distributed in the coming weeks.
In WFP's main warehouse in the city of WFP says the grain will support 1 month of assistance for over 1.5 million people who've been displaced by drought and conflict. The grain is currently being unloaded in WFP's main warehouse in the city of Adama and will be distributed in the coming weeks. Conflict, drought, and rising costs of driving food insecurity across Ethiopia. With 20 million people in need of food aid in Ethiopia, the World Food Programme says supply chain stability is critical to its work. Also in Ethiopia, we're being told by our humanitarian colleagues that fighting in the north of the country continues to impact vulnerable people and the delivery of aid gets underway. The UNESCO announced today the mobilization in parts of Tigray, Amhara, and Afar regions. Tens of thousands of people are reportedly being displaced by fighting and insecurity. There's been no humanitarian convoy movements into Tigray since August 23rd. This is preventing the delivery of supplies, including additional fertilizer for the upcoming planting season. The twice-weekly UN's humanitarian air service flights between Addis Ababa and Mekelle have also been halted since the 25th of August. Within Tigray, we continue, however, to distribute available fertilizer and other aid as much as we can. Wish those injured a speedy recovery. To our partners.
Chinese President Xi Jinping exchanged congratulatory messages with the chairperson of the African Union and Senegalese President Macky Sall on the 20th anniversary of the AU's founding and the establishment of the China-AU diplomatic relations. In his message to the AU chief, he pointed out that over the past 20 years, the AU has led African countries in striding forward along a path of seeking strength through unity, development, revitalization, and integration. He also demonstrated Africa's strength in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, upholding multilateralism, and safeguarding the common interests of developing countries. Robotics and embedded systems engineer Kemisola Bolariwa is making it easier for women to check for lumps just by wearing a smart bra. She's the founder and CEO of Nextwear Technologies, a company that builds wearable technology as solutions to healthcare problems. Take a listen.
Statistics from the World Health Organization states that in 2020, there were 2.3 million women diagnosed with breast cancer and 685,000 deaths globally. It also states that as at the end of 2020, there were 7.8 million women alive who were diagnosed with breast cancer in 5 years, making it the world's most prevalent cancer. This is a concerning issue for robotics and embedded systems engineer Kemisola Bolariwa, who after losing a loved one to the disease, decided to embark on a journey to help other women increase their chances of survival.
You can agree with me that breast cancer is a threat on women globally, and it has the high mortality rate due to late detection. So how can women now detect this cancer at early stage? And that is what we're doing. That is what we are using wearable technology to solve, to enable women to know their status, to check their status at the earliest stage. If there's any abnormality in the breast, if there's lump or whatever it might be in the breast, so they'll be able to know at the early stage before it grows to stages and get complicated.
Kemisola is the founder of Nextwear Technology, a company that builds wearable tech to boost healthcare. And after that emotional experience in 2017, she did some research and realized that early detection is key to treating breast cancer. And so together with her team, they come up with a wearable solution.
We came up with a smart bra device that helps women to detect the earliest stage of breast cancer. Aside detecting that, it will also check for the abnormality in the breast. It will monitor daily condition of a patient that have been already diagnosed of breast cancer, maybe someone that has been treated of breast cancer. This bra will help to monitor such patients. And we also do this to aid breast self-examination.
The journey actually started in 2019, and after almost 2 years of research and development, Kemisola launches the first prototype. In February 2022, the smart bra was born using ultrasound technology.
We are working towards accuracy because we want to increase the penetration. For when we first launched it this year, we received so many responses from all over the world, which really helps us with the development, like where we are right now. From no responses guide from radiologists, from oncologists, sonographers, and so on. And it's really helping us to upgrade what we have on ground. And that is what we are doing right now. Coming to the sensor that we use for this, we are upgrading the sensor. Instead of using the lower frequency, now we have a higher frequency, which we are currently working on. You can see we are working on the boards here. We have so many boards that we'll be using for the new developments now that will help with the efficiency of the device. We have so many which can be talking about. They are kind of technical. And that's it.
Kemisola says the smart bra needs to be worn for at least 30 minutes for examination and diagnosis, after which it sends the results to the wearer via a mobile app.
Well, that's Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jacka Rogers.